Welcome to the Redeemed Man podcast. I'm Nate Dewberry, part of the team here at The Redeemed, and we're so excited that you joined us for this episode today. At The Redeemed, we're building a Christ-centered community of men where men can grow through shared experiences, meaningful conversations, and authentic connection. Part of that mission for us is our podcast. Our podcast gives us the opportunity to hear from guests, both their struggles and their victories of faith, and through that experience, grow closer to Christ and closer to each other. Today, I am thrilled to have with me Pierce Showe. And I think I said it correctly when I first looked at your last name. I was like, it's Showe. And then when I heard you say it, I was like, no, I totally butchered that. But Pierce, we're so glad to have you. Pierce leads or founded Run Your Race, a ministry that uses the discipline and grit of running as a metaphor for the Christian life. He recently completed the Leadville 100 ultramarathon, and we'll hear more about his story of running endurance races and the love that he's developed for that and how God's used that as a ministry for him. So Pierce, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nate. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm really inspired by what you guys are doing with your platform, bringing people together, bringing community together, and growing closer to God. So I'm just blessed to know you and excited to dive in.
Well, so excited, and I look forward to our conversation. But first, we definitely got to just start out really bold with, all right, there's some guys that immediately heard Leadville 100 ultramarathon and went, holy smokes, is this guy crazy? So Talk to me, Pierce, about how your love for endurance running really developed.
Yeah, so the Leadville 100, just so people know, it's like a 100-mile ultra marathon. Yes, it is on feet. You run the whole way, and it's in Leadville, Colorado. It starts at 10,000 feet, the altitude, so the air's a little bit thinner up there. Yeah. And then you travel 100 miles over the mountains, and you end up climbing 15,000 vertical feet, and then, descend that as well. So that's a really fun race. It's definitely tough and will test you to the core. But I didn't start out doing 100-mile races. This is me like 6 years into the process of running intentionally. And even before that, I did some sports. But it's amazing how in life we all have like defining moments, and how like in those moments, God really forms who we are. And so one defining moment in my life was high school lacrosse. And when I became a freshman, I'm trying out for the varsity team. We had to run a 5K before tryouts. So every day, the first week of tryouts, we had to run a 5K. They called it Hell Week. And that's what it was. It was horrible. Tons of conditioning, tons of running. And whereas a lot of my teammates were complaining about this 5K we had to do, I realized I actually kind of enjoyed it because it was something that I could be good at. And I wasn't like the best from the jump, but I was never the most talented athlete, but I worked really hard. And it's so true that like you can outwork talent. And so for me, is like I found running, I pushed myself, I realized, oh, I can actually run. And then my mom has been running a marathon for every year over the last 30 years. And so she never like had me on a training regimen growing up or told me I needed to run marathons or whatever. So get that out of your mind. But what she did was she set a good example. And a good example is worth 1,000 words, worth 1,000 sermons. And she didn't have to convince me to run. I actually saw her, and I saw her, and I was like, man, if my mom can do this marathon stuff, like maybe I could do at least a half. And so I signed up for the half. I'm like, I'm going to do it. I met with some resistance, some doubt of other people not thinking I could do it. But then I doubted myself a little bit. But luckily, I had already signed up. So I go and I do this September of 2018. And I ended up finishing that race. And there was like a switch that went off in my brain of, man, if I didn't think I could do this before, but I was able to do it, what else is possible and what else can I do? And so it was like this explosion mentally of like, a realization that I had a lot more to give, that God had created me with more inside of me, and that with training and dedication and consistency, I would be able to realize goals that I never thought was possible. And so that was like the springboard for me to get into running. I did a marathon, then 50 miles, 60 miles, 100 miles, 300-mile races in a year, 200-mile races in a year, and just like have done all these races because I'm like, what am I capable of? What is possible, especially through Christ? And God's used it in my life to be, as like you said, a tool and a form of evangelism. Because when I am running, I'm always running in this shirt, and God is glorified. So long answer, but that's how I got into running.
No, Pierce, that's awesome. Thank you for taking us kind of back to that pivotal moment when you were playing lacrosse and that training and how it developed from that. I can totally relate, as my son ran a race with my wife, a 5K, and he really did well. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, I can do this. And gave him an opportunity to run cross country and track in high school. He's not done anything. He's not a big distance runner like you are, but he realized that he could do something different, and that really made an impact. And that's, to me, one of the cool things about our story and our relationship with God is how he uses our gifts, and he uses oftentimes the challenges that we face to form us and direct us and refine kind of what he's called us to. So, Pierce, obviously, I know you've done a lot of crazy races. What's ahead? Do you have some big things that are like on the calendar already?
That's what everyone always asks. It's like, you've done this. What's next? What's that? And I really feel like I do a good job, like leaning into the Lord of like, Lord, what do you have for me next? What's the next race? Because in my mind, there's UTMB, which is a big race in Europe. There's fast marathons. There's Badwater 135, which is 135 miles through Death Valley. Like there's all these different things to do. And in my natural mind, in my flesh, I can get overwhelmed. It's like, God, what do you want me to do? Like there's so many different ways I could go, so many different moves I can make and things I could do. And so I feel like the Lord has just been so pivotal in directing my steps with the specific races that I do. And it seems like he just makes like the next one clear after it. And I try not to like worry too much about like picking the right race, and lean into him. Because Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not onto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your paths. And for a lot of my life, I tried to direct my own paths, figure it out all myself. And there's so much peace that comes when you just lean into God and like, hey, direct me where you want me to go, because I know you'll make me most effective.
Love that you bring that verse up. I actually read that today. So, as a community, we're going through in the month of September the book of Proverbs, and we're on chapter 3, of course, today as we're recording this on September the 3rd. And just there's so much truth and just a foundation for everything we do in that particular passage in Proverbs, and trusting God and not leaning on our understanding, which in American culture really is countercultural, because everybody wants to figure it out, have a plan. This is my dream. This is my goals. And you've said, hey, no, I surrender this. I want to trust God in every step. And I think that's such a beautiful picture, even in Psalms, where it talks about God's word is a lamp to our path. It's not something that lights so that we see the end, but we see the next step that we should take. And so we're able to take one more step. And that's exactly what you're doing in trusting God. So, Pierce, I have to know this love for endurance running. We've learned about the catalyst for that, but how did your faith develop and that become something that not only are you passionate about running, but you're passionate about the fame of Christ and lifting him up? So talk to me a little bit about how you came to know him, and then how you decided to really use your passion to give him glory.
Yeah. So I'll try and keep this condensed, but essentially I grew up, my parents didn't really go to church. My dad's side of the family, actually both sides of my family, was Catholic, but they kind of kept their faith to themselves. And my parents got divorced when I was 6 years old. And essentially my mom raised us on Sundays. On the weekends, she was really tired, so she didn't take us to church because she was a nanny working 10, 12 hours a day and just, just didn't get us there. And so by the time I was in high school, because of my parents' divorce, it put in me this like drive to do well and like to accomplish things because I saw my mom working so hard. And I'm like, I don't want that to be for my life. Like I'm going to do really well in my career, make a lot of money, all this stuff. And I was operating from a wound because my parents weren't together and my dad wasn't really around that much. And so I looked for pleasure and attention in a lot of the wrong places. And so that just left me feeling really empty. In high school, I would go out to parties and do the whole drinking thing and just wake up on Saturday mornings, Sunday mornings, hungover, like out till 2 a.m. The night before, like, what am I doing? Like, all my friends do this, and so that's why I do it. And sure, it may be fun in the moment, but like I feel awful the next day. And so I think I just had like so many times of that. And then my senior of high school, my grandpa on my dad's side passed away. And that was really hard for me. I was like, God, if you're real, why would you have this happen to me? Especially because I was just starting to develop a relationship with him, which is a whole nother story. But I was so excited, starting to develop this relationship, and he passes. And he was a believer, and we didn't talk much about faith, but I knew that he went to church at this Catholic church in my area. And so because of that, I was like really seeking. And so I went to that church and, I thought it was like cool that he went there, but I didn't really connect. I didn't really understand what was going on, the certain parts of the service and whatnot. And I'm so glad that like I wasn't completely turned off to church because of that. But I really think like, yeah, the Holy Spirit was just guiding me. And like, in that I had this thought of like, okay, the Catholic like way of doing things isn't for me, but that doesn't mean God isn't real. And so I went to a Christian non-denominational church like a month or two later, and then went in and just like saw people raising their hands and singing in church and worship. I'm like, what is going on? This is cool. People actually like want to be here. And so that experience really marked me. And then when I went out to college at USC in California, I decided to not go like the fraternity route. And I was like, I need some friends. So I joined a Christian club. And through that process, got discipled, and God really like brought amazing people in my life to mentor me, to teach me. And through one of those mentors who at first I thought I was like just grabbing dinner with him, but he was actually discipling me. He said, Pierce, because I was always a really hard worker. I was like reading the word, memorizing scripture, going to service and all that, but I was trying to earn it.
Yeah.
And he's like, Pierce, it's amazing that you like want to do these things, but you can't earn your salvation. Like it's by grace we've been saved through faith. And so God wants you to just surrender your heart and make Jesus the Lord of your life. And then all those things will flow out of that posture. And so I was like, awesome, let's do it. And so he led me through the prayer, gave my life to Christ. And that was I think that was very beginning of 2020. So about 5 years ago. But it's been amazing.
Awesome. So thankful for you to take us through that journey. And, for me, I hear so much in your story where I already sense that God is doing some redeeming work.
Yeah.
If you can talk a little bit about that, of even your parents' divorce and other
Yeah.
things that you've walked through, and how you've seen God redeem those things and really allow you to minister to others, but also kind of heal those wounds in your life.
Yeah, that's really good. I think growing up the way I did, like I harbored a lot of resentment towards my dad, a lot of hurt from that. And I had just amazing mentors in my life over the last couple of years and currently. And one of them pointed out like, hey, like, are you still holding on to this? Like, have you ever called your dad and told him you forgive him, even if like he doesn't know the things that you've had or were going on? And so anyway, I did that, and that was one of the hardest things, but God really gave me the strength, and just knowing like how much I am forgiven. It's like, how do I, what right do I have to harbor unforgiveness to other
Right.
people when I've been forgiven completely? And so it's like the parable, I'm going to butcher it, but like with the guy whose debts are forgiven, and then like he goes out and someone owes him money, and then he tries to get that money, and the master's like, dude, I forgave all your debts, and you're holding on to other things from other people after you've been forgiven from so much. And so it was like that situation. And so through good mentorship led it to illuminate certain blind spots, and then through Christ giving me the strength to be able to forgive my dad, and really create that relationship. And one thing that really stuck with me is, um, I had a mentor tell me, he's like, Pierce, like, your dad is the way that he is because his dad raised him a certain way. Like, he was never taught to love you the way that like you want to be loved and think that you need to be loved. Like, he probably has a lot of wounds from his father. And so the more I like tried to put myself in a posture of like understanding, that really helped as well.
Pierce, I love that you talk about forgiveness because I think, so many of us can relate to that one way or another, where someone has wronged us, and are we releasing them or are we holding on to that? And that really can become a stronghold that the enemy keeps us where we're not really living life to the full that he has for us. I mean, he's purchased our freedom and we can have a relationship with God, but many of us don't step into the full freedom because we stay in a stronghold. And oftentimes that is unforgiveness because, again, so many of us have faced a wrong by somebody else. And it's so easy for us to be deceived into thinking that us not forgiving them actually holds something over them. And in reality, it keeps us in bondage, not them. And so
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. And I know in your life, that's part of the things that God is redeeming and now giving you restoration and healing around. And those mentors have been key to that.
Yeah.
Talk to us, I think, a little bit. So a guy who's listening that's young 20s like you are, or maybe a gentleman who's listening who's in his 40s and 50s that probably should be mentoring. What would you say to the guy who's looking for a mentor, and then the man who maybe is a little bit hesitant to take the time to invest in somebody?
Yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, that's what we're called to do. It's like go out, make disciples. Like that's the point. That's the most important thing. And I am only the way that I am because of like God using men in my life to disciple and to grow me. And that's like so important. That's like everything. And for the guy who's like needing discipleship, my encouragement would be to pray for a Paul in your life. Pray for someone who is ahead of you that can disciple you, and God will bring you someone, and it will be the most amazing thing. It'll be extremely fruitful, and he'll do it in the most crazy way. The way that probably the man who's had the most impact on my life is a guy named Steve Weatherford, and he played for the Giants and won a Super Bowl with them in 2012. Was a really successful NFL player, but essentially like was looking to the world, tried to fill the void in his heart with things of this world. Ended up being really empty. The night of the Super Bowl was the most depressing night of his life because of this, and retired out of nowhere, moved out to San Diego, got saved, and then God radically changed his life. And so anyway, I was at this business conference in 2020 and 2021. So about a year and a half after I got saved. And I heard him speak. And at this business conference, he just gave his testimony and did an altar call, and 500-600 business guys, tons of people stood up. It was so powerful. And I wrote down in my journal after that, I was like, man, it would be amazing to be able to work for someone like this someday, just so I could learn from him, because I knew like I was in a season of learning, not earning. Like it was more important that I was learning in that stage rather than earning a certain amount of income. And so anyway, I made up my mind with that, decided that, but just like was like kind of like, oh, this would be awesome. And then 3 months later, I'm at this event called 29029, where you hike the vertical equivalents of summiting Mount Everest. And there's like only 250 people that do this. It's a very small like event, very close knit. And out of the 250 people there, Steve was there just 3 months after I'd heard him speak at this conference. And this hiking event was supposed to be in 2020, but it got pushed back to 2021. So anyway, I'm at this event. I see Steve. We get connected. And then a few months later, we're actually able to get further connected. He ends up giving me a job opportunity to move out um, to Dallas to be able to work for him. And it's just like this wild like set of God stories and events that led to that happening, for me to end up living with him, working for him, living with him and his family and working for him. And then boom, it's like, what? That's crazy. And I've grown like more than I ever have in my life, the 2.5 years I worked for him. And then he helped me launch a running coaching business. And just so much has happened out of that. And I'm just so grateful for God putting him in my life, because like there's no way I would have grown in the Lord in the way that I have without a leader and a mentor like that. And then to the guy who is like, man, should I invest my time? Um, should I not? One, it's like that's what we're called to do. It's always going to be worth your amount of time, and but also invest wisely. Like if you're investing in a guy and he's not like making the changes and being coachable and being like discipleable, like then maybe it's not the right fit for you and that person. But um, there's no doubt that you're at least like a step or a couple steps ahead of um, some guys that and like that's like we're meant to pass down things and to help each other out. So yeah, that's my word of wisdom there.
No, it's great. And Steve Weatherford is making such an impact in the kingdom. As you
Yeah.
mentioned, he is, especially among athletes and those that are really serious about pushing themselves physically. If you don't follow him on social media, you definitely need to go check him out and gain some insights and some encouragement. Again, to me, like you talk about this, and I've heard you talk about it, is just who you surround yourself with. And so surrounding yourself with guys like that, even if it is on social media, those are voices that can speak into our life, because there's a whole lot of other things we could allow
Yes.
into our mind. We need to put guys like that who are pursuing Christ, who are making a difference.
Yes.
And love what you said about it's our calling. Like, it's ultimately, you can make excuses, but we're all called to make disciples. So look for an opportunity and don't let the enemy deceive you.
Yeah.
You don't have time, because as guys, no matter what environment you're in, if you have kids, you're responsible for their discipleship. If you have guys in your life that you work with, like, are they in a place where you can lead them to Christ and pour into
Yeah.
them? Look for those opportunities. They're all around you. Let's shift a little bit back to the endurance side. So it
Yeah.
is, I can tell you live life to the fullest. You're super passionate. When you're running, how have you learned to endure for these long races? One of the things I've heard you talk about is kind of the principle that you use, but I think that can be applied to so many different things in our life. Because
Yeah.
one of the things in Christian faith is we're called to endurance. And a lot of times I think guys go through something difficult and they want to throw their hands up. And yet you've learned this principle in your races that I think we can apply to our Christian life.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. And it's so cool how God has used like running in my life to be a teacher for so many different things. It's like delayed gratification, all these good principles that like we need to live by. God has taught me that tactically and very like tangibly through running. And so like sometimes it's easier to see it play out in a race context versus like extrapolating over life. But I know that like by the principles that happen in running, like it applies to life so much. So that main principle is called segmentation. And I learned it through my racing, through also a mentor who is a Navy SEAL. And they taught the SEALs this to get through buds. And essentially the principle of segmentation is taking a large goal and breaking it down into segments, more manageable segments, to be able to just focus on getting the next segment done and being able to focus on that and then attack the next one. And I'll share a quick story on this in that. So I do these marathons, ultra marathons, and I decided I was going to do a 200-mile race. And 200-mile race on foot in one go. You sleep like 1 to 2 hours a night. It's a long thing. But anyway, the first one I did, I'll be honest, I was a little arrogant going into it. I had done marathons, I'd done 100-mile races. I usually did pretty well. I was always like the top 10 or 15% of the field. And so I was looking up past times for the race. I'm like, oh, I'll be top 10%. Like I'll finish in under 72 hours for this race. And, it was awesome. I was excited about it. But here's the thing is because of this, I went into it a little bit arrogant. I wasn't mentally in check going into the race, focused. And so when hardship arose 30 miles into this race, when I started chafing really bad, I actually had diarrhea because my electrolytes were off. All these things started to go bad. And I got in my head and I thought to myself, this is what holds a lot of people back. I thought to myself, man, if I feel this bad now, how am I possibly going to go another 170 miles? If I feel this bad now, how am I possibly going to keep going? And it was rough. It was challenging. And I almost didn't get through. But I remembered a advice one of my coaches gave me, my coach for this race. He said, Pierce, before you make any decision to quit, eat and sleep and just keep going. See if you've got more in the tank. And so I got to 60 miles into the race where I was going to sleep. And I was just going to eat and sleep and like tell my crew, like, all right, I tried it. Like it didn't work and we're done. Which is crazy because that was the first race I would have DNF'd. But I ate, I slept, and I woke up with enough to keep going. And so I had to battle the rest of that race. But instead of focusing on, I'm 30 miles in, how am I possibly going to go another 170? I started focusing on just getting to the next aid station, just doing that next chunk. And what I found is that I could feel bad. I could feel not good going into an aid station. But once I drink some Coke, get some fuel, have a quesadilla, be around the energy and the environment of the volunteers cheering you on, sit down for 5 minutes, I had enough in the tank to keep moving forward. And so I think sometimes in life, I think like we live in a spiritual reality. That is 1000% sure. But sometimes like God just needs us to like sleep and eat. And the things that when you're going to bed seemed like they were like earth shattering, like how am I ever going to get through this? You're able to push through and get past it. And so, yeah, that principle of segmentation is so important. And tangibly in life, it's like, what are those big goals you have? And what are the like stair stepper things that you need to have happen to reach those? Because I know for me, like the goals I have for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, like I look at them, I'm like, I don't even want to look at you. Like, I do not think I'm capable of this. How am I possibly going to do this? Yeah. But when I focus on like, okay, I need to focus on this week and this month, like, okay, I can work with that. And so, yeah, segmentation is really good in running, but also in life.
Yeah, I would be willing to guess that there's somebody listening that if you were honest, you are at a place where you feel like quitting, that you feel like there is no way you can take the next step. And I think you have to take the approach that Pierce shared with us is what can I do right now? And it might be that you need to eat something and rest, or it may be just take the step to the next thing that God has for you, and He will sustain you. He will give you grace for it. Whether it's your marriage that feels like there's no hope for it, whether it's a child that you're like, will they ever come back to Christ? I just don't know what's going to happen. A job situation that you're in, it sometimes is just taking that principle and going one step. Let me do whatever the next thing is, and don't look at how can I eat the whole thing at one time, but one bite at a time. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for that, Pierce. Also, with your running, I have to know: is there a few scripture passages that are like your meditation when you're running? That as you're in those spaces to keep your mindset right, what are some of those verses?
Yeah. Yeah. So one thing I come back to, like back on that um, situation of like eating and sleeping. You probably know this better than me, but like I think it's First Kings like 11 or 12. I think it was Elijah
Yes.
was like God had moved so powerfully, but then Jezebel like wanted to kill him. And so he ran and was so scared and was like, God,
Gonna
take
die.
me, kill me. And then literally God's like, chill out, dude. Just eat and sleep. And then he was able to run for 40 days and 40 nights. So that's like, it's literally a biblical principle in that.
Yes.
Um,
Sometimes we over spiritualize some things and we under spiritualize others. And sometimes
yes.
it literally is we need to just take care of ourselves physically. God's provided for us, and the rest would be our gift to ourselves
Yeah.
and from the Lord. So
Yeah.
you can look at it like you said, we're in a spiritual world. It says we're against, there's powers and principalities that we don't see in the dark forces, but we do know that God's provided the physical things that we have, our physical body. We're to take care of those things. We're to steward those things. And so we have to make sure we don't lean too much that there's a devil behind every force, but also that we don't go, oh, sometimes it's just I need to sleep. I don't necessarily need to pray more. I just need to rest.
Yeah. 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 It's a both and
Yes.
that's for sure. Um, um, but yeah, back to a couple of verses. Like one verse I've always loved, and like when I was newly saved, like a pastor spoke this over my life. He's like, 1 Corinthians 9:24, like 24 through 27. That's gonna be your life verse. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. And then basically talks about how we don't just go for a earthly prize, but an eternal prize, and how important it is like to be self-disciplined in that, and go through strict training for that. I'm blanking on the verse right now. It's Isaiah 40:31. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They'll soar on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary. They'll walk and not grow faint. Like that's huge for me. Um, and yeah, I mean, like through my runs, it's really cool because it's just like a time where I'm always like go go go, responding to messages, doing these things, and like when you're out on the trail, just in like God's creation, like it's just a disconnect. That's really amazing for me, and I just like talk to God. Like I'll pray about things. Like it's actually such a cool God thing. Like I'm getting married in 10 days. And um, on Monday, I was running with my fiance, and we were just like running and praying as we were running. And I'm like, oh my gosh, God, you just outdid yourself. Like how in the world did you bring me her? I'm punching above my pay grade. But yeah, so those are a couple of those verses. And then, yeah, just like really spending time with God through that is just really, really special, free of distraction. I think there's so many distractions in our world today. There's so many different things, so many different even messages that you can listen to. But it's like I can sometimes get on the track of like listen to too much stuff versus like how much am I actually hearing from God? and reading his words, spending time with him, conversating with him, versus just trying to like improve my, like learn through those means. They're important, but it's very important to do these other things as well.
Well, Pierce, all of us can imagine the training that goes into preparing for these races. But I would love you kind of talked a little bit about it, but let's go a little more practical. What are some of the things, as someone who is single, about to get married, in their early 20s, you might say mid 20s. I'm saying early because I'm 44, so I'm saying early 40s, even though
We're just getting started.
But when you think about, what are some of those things that you've developed patterns in your life? Because I know those disciplines really play into those races that you're training your body, so your body responds in a certain way. So how have you trained yourself spiritually, and what are some of those practices that you have implemented in your life? And maybe they're not for everybody exactly the way you're doing it, but obviously reading God's word is something we're all called to in prayer. But what does it look like for you, and how have you grown in those disciplines in your spiritual walk?
Yeah, that's really good. Number one, we talked about this a little bit earlier, so I won't go too far into it, but like the people who you surround yourself with matters. Like in the past, like I surrounded myself with people who, would want to go out on the weekends. And so inevitably, even though didn't want to, as I was new as saved, like I'd fall into those traps. And so versus now, like my roommates host worship nights at our house all the time. Like we're talking about going to Bible studies and all of those things. And it is a lot easier to follow God and to, really grow spiritually when you're surrounded by people who are doing the same. Like it sounds so simple, but it's like, it's so important, and it's so worth like making drastic changes so that can happen, so that you can grow in the Lord. And so that's number one. In that vein, number two, I'd say is I have a prayer partner, a guy that I talk to every single week. We're both at a like similar stage in our walk with the Lord, and so we're like brothers in the faith. And so we'll pray for one another, we'll encourage one another, we'll call out blind spots in one another. And this is like my running mate, my Barnabas, my guy that I just like, we're doing life together, and we're holding each other accountable. And so that's so important for me, because it's like, I think it can be easy to do things alone, and it's easy. Like men do so well being challenged.
Yes.
And it's so helpful to be challenged. And so that's number two. Number three, I've obviously have my mentors in my life, Steve, another guy, Peter, who I like will go to for counsel on certain things. I've gone through seasons where there's been a very specific cadence of meeting. I've gone through seasons where there haven't, but I always have mentors in my life who I'm consulting with for major decisions. And then like throughout my week, like there are specific anchors in my week of things that I'm doing every week. Like going to church obviously is one of them. And I don't take a casual relationship with church. It's like, I'm going to be there every Sunday. Like I'm going to be there. If I can't go at night, I'll go in the morning. Just like having that, like tenacity towards it makes a big difference, I've found, like, because I've been casual in the past, and it doesn't, serve me well. But then getting around spiritual community is really, really important. So like I've got church, but then I've also got a couple other different groups that I do during the week, so that I'm constantly just around other believers, and keeping the main thing. So it gets harder too, like as there's more things that you got to do, like more responsibility. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir. I can only imagine, having kids, but even like as a young adult now getting married, like the margin for time that you have becomes less and less. So I learned a very valuable thing from my mentor, Steve, in that like he doesn't really meet people for coffee one-on-one, like if ever, just because his schedule, but he'll invite people into things he's already doing, like going to the gym or going to church or things like that, so he can get two things done for one.
Yeah.
And then that way he's able to get a workout in and then, spend the time with the person, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to spend that time. So that, and then last thing, I'll leave the best for last, but also the most, like, I feel like obvious, is like reading the word every day and having like a plan for it.
Yeah.
For me, something that's really amazing is I have my prayer partner, and we're going through a Bible plan where we read 3 chapters a day, and then we listen to a podcast about it, and then we talk about it. And so having that sort of plan, and then also someone else doing it to facilitate conversation, is so helpful, and I feel like has been just even more fruitful than just like me doing it on my own. So yeah, I don't know how many things I gave you there, but those are the things, and they work. If you've heard them, like people tell you them time and time again, it's probably because they work. So yeah.
There's definitely, I mean, if you're listening and you haven't implemented one of those, just take one and start with one of those and implement it and see the difference that it makes in your life just
Yeah.
by implementing one of those things that Pierce talks about that he's implemented in his own life.
Yeah.
You talked about, and when this podcast is released, you'll already be married. But there's a lot of guys who, whether they're your age or whether they find themselves single again, and they're going, what does it look like to find that person? And you shared a post on social media where you talk a little bit about of really giving that to God and letting him do it his way. Talk a little bit about that, because I think for so many men, especially, but ladies as well, who, find themselves in a season when they're single and they're looking for that special person, I think oftentimes it can become an almost obsession to find. And yet you talk a little bit about how you release that to God and how you've seen God's faithfulness and just delivering you an amazing, amazing, godly woman who loves you for your heart, not just your hair.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. No, Nate, this is so good. I'm so glad that you asked this, and I'll be the first to say, like, I think there's so many people like who give relationship advice that like don't have fruit, like in speaking in on relationships. And so I want to preface what I say with like I'm not married yet. Like I'm not going to speak about anything else than my experience in finding my future or soon to be wife in 10 days. In that, like, the world will like brainwash us and teach us so many wrong things. And so it would make sense that we'd have a lot of wrong believing when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
And so meeting Ashley, I've had like so many paradigms broken, because the first like month that I was with her, and I still do this, I'm like, how is this girl even real? Like, how is this even possible? Like, she loves Jesus. Like, sometimes I'm around her, I'm like, do I even love God? Like, what's going on? Like, just her fire for the Lord is so encouraging to me. For me, she's very athletic. Like, we ran like 7 miles together on Monday, and we were praying the whole time. I'm like, what the heck? How's that possible? But so I share that to say, like, God has someone for you that's infinitely more than you could ask, think, or imagine. It's like Ephesians 3:20. But I really believe it comes when you surrender that over to him and trust him that in his time, he'll bring you the right person, and that you don't need to try and like force something to happen that's not meant to be. Like, before I met Ashley, like I'll be honest, like I would go on dates and I'd try and like justify relationships. I'd try and be like, oh, well, if this thing was different about her, or she grew in this way, like it would make sense for us to get married or whatever. And there are so many different times where I did. But then through some conversation was like, that was, someone shed some light on that, was like, dude, like, you need to stop this. And so I'm like, all right. And so I surrendered it over, and sure enough, Ashley comes. But what I've learned is like, God has, he grew me and he grew Ashley so much over the last 4 years in our singleness, and in the Lord, so that when we come together, we don't have to like battle a lot of the same things other people battle when it comes to like, I don't know, like something is like offense or unforgiveness or these different things. Like God has done so much work in our hearts already so that like we can come together and be leaps and bounds ahead of where that we were. And in specifically, like the way we got connected was it through some long strand of events. I have a friend who runs a podcast. He introduced me to another friend or to one of his friends who runs a podcast. I met that guy for coffee. He told me about some pastor in Dallas that runs. I went for a run with this pastor, and then this pastor had a small group with his wife that Ashley was a part of. And so like all these dots had to connect in so many like weird ways that you can't like doubt that it was the Lord. And so like he is no respecter of person, so it's like if he did it for me, he can do it for you, and he will do it for you, but it takes that surrender. So yeah.
Definitely takes that surrender. And I think that's the part where when you talk about it, it's so important for all of us to come to that place, because so many times we try to make things happen on our own. And
Yeah.
ultimately, when we give it to God, when we surrender it to Him, we receive so much more than like what you said, than we could ever imagine, that we could dream of. His best for us is
Yeah.
way better than what we can come up with on our own. We're so excited for you and Ashley, and we know that God is going to use both of you guys together to do more than you would do apart. And we're so excited to see what your ministry looks like, what God
Thank
has
you.
in store for you. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we know that both of you are going to be lifting up Jesus as King. And
Amen.
so for guys who are listening right now, what are some ways they can keep up with you, or maybe even learn a few things about endurance running? We have
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of
for sure.
guys who work training all the time, and they're like, how can what other tools can I put in my arsenal?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of coaches. The only way I've been able to run the races I've run is through coaches, and so that's why I've dedicated myself now to run races and to coach other people. So if you're interested in that, just send me a message on Instagram at Pierce Showe, or anyone who listened to this, like DM me, let me know what your biggest takeaway was. Would love to hear that. It's always so encouraging to me, and I'd love to see what was valuable for you. But yeah, Instagram is my most active platform where I'm sharing about all God's doing and helping people run further than they've ever gone in the process. So that's the best place.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Pierce. It's been an amazing conversation. We're praying for you as you enter this new relation, or this existing relationship, but to a new level, a new
Yeah.
marathon, a new
Yeah.
endurance for you guys. But I know God is so in it, and I'm super excited for you. And we just pray God's blessing over you and Ashley. And thank you so much for the time today. God bless, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nate. I love what you're doing. Such an incredible show.